Okay, so we actually had this Zoom a little earlier, and I neglected to hit record. This is not a very long presentation at all. It only takes about 10 minutes to get through this anyway. And separate from this is a Zoom recording when we started recording, and we went through the previous Kahoots that were parts of the notes. We redid some of the quizzes. We took some of the quizzes, and I actually went on my Kahoot webpage and I found a few that aren't necessarily within the notes as we've been doing, and we used that as a brief review. So if that's helpful to you, go ahead. Some of those, as I stated when we were taking those quizzes, that they were created by other students. Sometimes the questions were good and had pretty good grammar, and some of them the grammar's not so great. So if you can go ahead and navigate through those, and see some examples, some other questions, I think it's always helpful. Okay, so muscular system 2, bone attachments. We have our origins and our insertions. An origin is generally the fixed or immovable point of attachment. The fixed as immovable as it can be, often with stabilization by other muscles. And the insertion is the point of attachment on the movable bone. So when muscles contract, the insertion moves toward the origin. Muscles come in opposable groups. So to execute motion, especially if you consider, let's say, elbow flexion and elbow extension, muscles work in opposition to each other, like biceps brachii and triceps brachii. Okay, so actions. We have prime movers, which are the muscles that provide the major force for specific action. Your antagonists, that are the muscles that work in opposition or reverse a specific movement. And synergists essentially aid the agonists or prime movers by either promoting the same movement or stabilizing nearby joints. So let me give you an example. A bicep curl. All right. Let's say you were at the gym, you wanted to do a bicep curl, and one that's just where your arms by your side. So you kind of pinch your elbows into your sides. You grab some weights in your hands, and then you flex the elbow joint and you let it return back and down into a neutral position. Flex it again, let it return to a neutral position. Right, so the prime mover is going to be your biceps brachii. The antagonist would be triceps brachii. The synergists, well, actually, you have quite a few in this, because we have the muscles that from the forearm that squeeze and hold on to the weights, but you also have muscles around the shoulder joint that keep your humerus from moving, keeps it stationary, kind of pinned to your side, so that the only part of your body that's moving is occurring at the elbow joint, your forearm. Right, so that's what we mean by prime movers, antagonists, and synergists. Okay, naming of skeletal muscles. And this is very handy to understand. It's like when we looked at the bones and features on bones, and we talked about what it means to be, a point of attachment, maybe a tubercle, or tuberosity, a line, a trochanter, those were all, or are all, Latin type terms, discrete, that are associated with a certain shape of a particular bump on bone. So when you understand that trochanters are like the big bumps, they find those on the femur, versus tuberosities or tubercles that are found, maybe on a mandible or on a humerus, then, it starts to make more sense. Openings, through bone, well, they're generally foramen, they could be, a meatus or a canal, a fissure, So once you understand what these terms mean, then when you're looking at that particular structure, opening, bump on bone, whatever it is, when you put together what those words mean, it helps you identify it faster. And that's quite helpful in lab. You don't have to label up diagrams, here in the lecture portion, but you do frequently have to either identify, label images of some kind online, or bones that are right in front of you, if you're doing lab face-to-face. All right, so they're based on generally location, shape, direction, size, number of origins, location of attachments, and muscle action. It's the location, the muscle name indicates the bone or body region, that muscle is near. So our example is temporalis. We know you generally have to know that for every campus here. Right? When the term ends in ALIS like that, that means pertaining to. So temporalis means pertaining to the temporal bone. Right? There's a frontalis pertaining to the frontal bone, occipitalis, nasalis. Right? So that helps you understand, the location. And so often that's in the naming of that particular muscle. The shape and direction. Shape depends on the arrangement of the fascicles. Typically, the shapes are or frequently maybe some kind of a geometric shape, like a deltoid, which is triangular shaped muscle. The trapezius is named trapezius because it has a trapezoid shape. We have serratus because it has the notched appearance, like a serrated knife that you might use as a steak knife, where it has a little teeth on the surface. Orbicularis is a circular muscle, like orbicularis oculi, orbicularis oris. Or direction depends on the orientation of the fascicles. Right? They're either straight, like rectus, straight up and down. Muscles are very parallel to, or the muscle fibers are parallel to the longitudinal axis of the body. So where do we see rectus? We have abdominal rectus, straight up and down and in the middle, right? Rectus femoris, one of the quadricep muscles, straight up and down and in the middle of the femur. Transverse, and that's a muscle at right angles to the longitudinal axis. So we don't generally, and I'll just tell you that the rectus, transverse, obliques, they're all terms actually used to describe the abdominal muscles, of which you have four. You have rectus abdominis, which is straight up and down and in the middle, right? The six-pack muscle. And if you can look more to the back surface or the deepest surface of the abdominal muscles, so where you generally see your transverse abdominis, and those fibers run on the horizontal plane, perpendicular to rectus abdominis. Right? Then when we look at the oblique muscles, they too, internal and external oblique, are perpendicular to one another. However, they're on a 45-degree angle. Right? Right, so I wouldn't worry about having to identify transverse abdominis because most instructors don't ask you to do that. But it's the deepest of these muscles, so a little harder to point to, in lab. All right, they can be named by size, like maximus, longus, like gluteus maximus, butt muscles. You actually have three: gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. Longus, like vastus, adductor longus, to the inner thigh muscles that bring your knees together, adduct the femurs at the hip. You have adductor longus. You have your vastus muscles, vastus medialis and lateralis. That's what I meant to say before. Vastus medialis and lateralis. You have latissimus dorsi, right? And dorsum is to the back. Right? So lat is broad and isthmus is the most. So it's a large superficial muscle. The lower back is latissimus dorsi. Right, so based on size, it can be named for the number of origins: biceps brachii, triceps brachii, quadriceps muscles. All right, 2, 3, 4. Or maybe the location of attachments, named for its origin or insertion. So sternocleidomastoid is a great example. Sternum and clavicle are the origins, so sternocleido, and mastoid process for the insertion. It can also be named based on the muscle action, like levator scapulae, right? Elevates the scapula, right? Originates on some of the transverse processes of cervical vertebra and insert on the, the superior medial angle of the scapula. And when they contract, they elevate the scapula, bringing your shoulders up toward your ears. Mm. And that's really it. That's really what the this less PowerPoint was for, is just to kind of give you an orientation and some information about why muscles are named the way they are. This is just this last picture is a picture of the head model of the muscles generally that you have to know, at least you have to know for our campus here. Masseter, sternocleidomastoid. It has the platysma muscle on top of it, but if we could peel that off, the Clearwater campus would have to know platysma, but sorry, TMI, I won't get into what other campuses often ask. All right, so thus the reason why these muscles are named the way they are. All right, so that is the end of the PowerPoint. The Kahoot quiz review is included in the other, it says exam 2 Kahoot quiz review, I think, and how we went through those different Kahoots. At the end, we started talking about something else. I didn't stop the record, but I had a question. We had a couple questions about the formats for some of the AMP2 lecture and lab that I teach for next semester. So, once we're done with those Kahoots, if that's all you want to watch, then you just turn it off. Otherwise you can go back through the former Zooms, that are loaded up there onto the course page under Zoom, and you can download it and just fast advance or fast forward till you get to the Kahoots and do them that way. And that's as a review. All right, then that is it. I will be logging again on Monday at 5:30. If no one, it's really just a review. Answer any questions. If I can think of anything else to throw in as a review, I'll include it. It's not mandatory. And then there's no Zoom on. Did I say Kahoot or Zoom? Now I'm getting a little tired. There is no Zoom meeting on Wednesday because the week is designated for completing exam 2. Monday, if you have any questions, you can jump in. I'll be in there for about 20 minutes, a half an hour. If no one, enters into the Zoom, I'm just going to close it out. It's not mandatory to attend. So. All right, good luck.